He stepped out of the elevator onto the 34th floor, the one that always made him straighten his shoulders a little. Everything up here felt too quiet, too expensive, too glossy for someone who spent his mornings making peanut butter sandwiches for his son and rushing to beat school traffic. The hallway smelled faintly of citrus and new carpet, the air cold enough to remind him he didn't quite belong in this world. Still, he needed this job. Being a single dad didn't give him the luxury of turning down good pay. The receptionist pointed him toward the CEO's office with a nervous smile, as if even she rarely dared disturb the woman inside. When he pushed the glass door open, he found her standing near the floor-to-ceiling windows, arms crossed, staring out over the city like someone trying to outrun her own thoughts. Her blouse was a sharp burnt orange that somehow made her look both fierce and exhausted, and the fitted red skirt hugged her in a way that suggested confidence, but her eyes didn't match. They flickered with something restless, something fragile. She turned when she heard him, her expression softening. "Just a little. You're the one from IT?" she asked, the hint of urgency beneath her practiced tone. He nodded. "Your assistant said the computer shut down during an upload?" "Frozen. Completely," she said, rubbing her forehead. "I have a presentation in an hour, and everything I've worked on is on that machine." Her voice trembled, not enough for most people to notice, but he heard it. He always noticed things people tried to hide. That's what raising a child alone taught him. How to read fear beneath frustration, exhaustion beneath anger. He approached the sleek silver computer on her desk, tools in hand. "I'll do my best. I should be able to recover your files." She hovered too close, really, as if moving even a foot away from the desk might make everything fall apart. He felt the air shift around them, thick with her anxiety. She wasn't just worried about a presentation. Something else clung. To her, something invisible but heavy. While he worked, he could hear her tapping her heels softly against the floor. She wasn't the type who liked losing control, he realized. She carried power the way others carried oxygen, necessary, constant, unquestioned. And right now, that power felt like it was slipping from her fingers. "You don't have to stay." "Right next to me," he said gently, glancing up. She startled, as if caught doing something wrong. "Sorry, it's just, there's a lot on that computer. Personal things, too." She paused, her voice thinning. "Things I don't want anyone to see." He nodded once, respectful. "I understand." But even then, even before anything dramatic happened, he sensed it. This wasn't just a broken computer. This was a story waiting to spill out. A woman who'd built an empire around herself, unaware that one glitch, one frozen screen, one moment of vulnerability could expose everything she never said out loud, and that was the moment he realized. This simple repair job was going to change much more than her afternoon. It might change both of their lives. Asterisk, he typed a few commands, watching the lines of code appear on the screen, trying to ignore the way she hovered behind him like someone waiting for a bomb to go off. Her breathing had become uneven, barely noticeable unless someone was paying attention, and he was. The office was too quiet, the tension too loud. When the system suddenly rebooted and the screen flickered from black to a bright white glow, she stiffened, stepping closer without meaning to. Then the desktop loaded, and before he could even touch a key, a photo burst open across the entire screen as if the computer had been waiting to betray her. A young woman, her standing in denim shorts and a crop top, posing shyly but trying to appear confident. The lighting was soft, her posture uncertain, like she wasn't used to being looked at, like she didn't quite know how to believe. She was enough. He blinked, startled, and reached instinctively toward the keyboard to close it, but she saw it. Her gasp was sharp, almost painful, and, in an instant, she lunged forward, rushing past him so suddenly her hair brushed against his shoulder. Her hand smacked the monitor with a loud, terrified slap. "No, no, no. Don't look at that." Her voice cracked mid-sentence, a sound so raw it froze him in place. Her whole body was trembling as she pressed, her palm against the screen as if she could physically hide the version of herself staring back. He stepped back, hands up, trying to show he meant no harm. I didn't open that," he said quietly. "It must have loaded automatically. I'm sorry." She didn't respond right away. She was breathing fast, shoulders rising and falling as if someone had punched the air out of her lungs. Slowly, she turned her face toward him, cheeks flushed from embarrassment, eyes wide with something more than fear, something like shame, old and deep. "Is that really still on here?" she whispered, not even talking to him at first. It sounded like she was speaking to the ghost of her past self. He didn't move, didn't speak. He understood enough to know she wasn't ready for comfort yet. She stared at the girl in the photo, the woman she used to be, so different from the powerful CEO standing here now. She looked like someone who had once begged quietly to be seen, valued, loved, and never got it. Her lips trembled as she traced the edge of the monitor with her fingertips. "I thought I deleted it years ago," she murmured, voice cracking. "I thought I erased everything, not just the picture, but her." The room grew painfully silent. She pulled her hand back from the screen, curling it into a fist against her chest. Something broke in her expression, something vulnerable, something unguarded. He swallowed gently. "It's okay," he said softly. "I didn't see anything." But she shook her head violently, eyes shining with embarrassed frustration. "You did," she whispered. "You saw me. The version of me I never wanted anyone to see again." And that was when he realized this wasn't about a photo at all. This was about a woman who had been hiding from her past for years, and fate had just exposed it in the most cruel, unexpected way right in front of someone she barely knew, but desperately didn't want to disappoint. She wasn't a CEO in that moment. She was just a woman, trying not to fall apart. She backed away from the screen slowly, as if the image might leap out and drag her backward into the life she had fought so hard to escape. Her arms folded tightly across her chest, not in anger but in self-defense, like she was trying to shield the younger version of herself from being judged. The confident CEO with sharp eyes and perfect posture disappeared. In her place stood a woman who looked heartbreakingly small, wounded, and tired of pretending everything was fine. He waited, giving her space, sensing she needed to speak before she could breathe again. "That picture," she began, her voice barely holding steady. "It's from years ago, before I took over this company, before anyone respected me, before I was anyone." She laughed once, but it was a hollow sound. "Back then I was trying so hard to feel beautiful, trying to convince myself I was worth something." She exhaled shakily, brushing a strand of hair away from her face with trembling fingers. "I was with someone who made me feel like I constantly had to prove myself. Prove I was attractive, prove I was enough. He made me believe I wasn't anything without his approval." Her voice softened so much it almost broke. "He told me to take photos like that. Said if I didn't look a certain way, no one would ever want me, no one would ever take me seriously." He felt something twist in his chest, not just sympathy, anger, for what she had survived, for what she had been told to believe about herself. "I didn't know," he said gently. "I'm sorry you went through that." She looked up, startled by the kindness in his voice. It was the kind of reaction someone has when they're used to being dismissed or judged, not understood. "I left him," she continued, a spark of steel beneath the hurt. "I worked twice as hard, built this company, built this life. And I thought I'd deleted everything from that time. Every memory, every picture, every piece of the girl who let herself be treated like that." She turned her gaze back to the computer screen, her expression filled with a strange mixture of grief and anger at her past, at herself, at the universe for revealing this in the worst possible moment. "I don't want to be her anymore," she whispered. "I don't even recognize that girl." He stepped closer, slow and respectful, speaking with quiet reassurance. "Maybe you don't recognize her because you've grown past the pain, but she's still you, and she deserves kindness too." Her lips parted slightly, as if the thought had never occurred to her. For a long moment she just stared at him, at this man she barely knew, but who somehow understood her better than the people she'd worked beside for years. Her eyes softened, losing their sharpness, filled now with a fragile gratitude she didn't know how to express. "I didn't expect you to say that," she admitted, her voice raw. "I didn't expect to see any of this," he said quietly. But I'm here, and I'm not judging you. Her breath shook, but this time not from fear. Something inside her was loosening, unraveling in a way that felt almost relieving, as if finally she was being seen without the mask she lived behind. And for the first time since the photo appeared, she didn't flinch or look away. She just stood there, letting herself be human. He took one careful step closer, making sure she had space to pull away if she needed to. She didn't. She stood still, arms still crossed protectively, but her eyes didn't hold the same walls they had before. Something inside her had cracked open, and instead of scrambling to hide it, she seemed relieved, exhausted but relieved. As if she'd spent years carrying a weight no one ever asked about. "I shouldn't care what you saw," she said quietly, staring at her reflection in the darkened part of the window. "I'm a CEO. I've negotiated with people twice my age, fought through boardrooms, survived things most people would crumble under. And yet," she let out a humorless laugh, "one old photo still scares me." "It doesn't scare you," he said softly. "It reminds you of who hurt you." His words hit deeper than she expected. She swallowed hard, her eyes glistening. "He told me I wasn't pretty unless I dressed or posed the way he wanted. He said no one would ever want a woman like me unless I changed everything about myself." She looked down at her clothes, the powerful, bold colors she usually wore like armor. "I guess I've been changing ever since." He shook his head gently. "You've been surviving ever since." Her breath hitched. She wasn't used to people naming her pain so plainly. She turned toward him fully now. Do you think I look foolish? That photo, it's not me anymore. It's a girl who didn't know how to say no. A girl who tried too hard." Her voice trembled. "When you saw it, I panicked because I thought you'd look at me differently. Like he did." He stepped closer, near enough for his voice to soften, but not close enough to crowd her. "I don't see a foolish girl," he said gently. "I see someone who wanted to feel loved. Someone who didn't have the right people around her. Someone who came out stronger," her lips parted, her throat tightening. She blinked fast, trying to stop emotions from spilling over. "You don't even know me," she whispered. He shook his head. "Maybe not everything about you, but I see enough. I see kindness buried under pressure. I see strength pretending it never hurts. I see a woman who built herself into something powerful, but forgot she's allowed to be soft too." She inhaled sharply. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not a coworker, not a friend. Definitely not someone she employed. And somehow, that made it feel even more real. "Why are you being so gentle with me?" she asked quietly, voice cracking under the weight of her own vulnerability. He hesitated, choosing his words. "Because I know what it's like to rebuild yourself," he said. "To hide the parts you think make you weak. To protect your child from the world and pretend you're not breaking." She stared at him, stunned. This man, this quiet, thoughtful, single dad fixing her computer understood her in ways the people in her own life never had. She had always been surrounded by people who respected her title, but not her heart. Her walls lowered another inch. She took a shaky step closer. "When you saw that picture, did you think I looked stupid?" "No," he said softly. "I thought you looked like someone who didn't realize how beautiful she already was." Her breath caught in her chest. She blinked, unable to hide the tiny tremble of her lips. For the first time, instead of running from the emotion, she let it settle inside her, warm, confusing, real. "What am I supposed to do with that?" she whispered. "Believe it," he replied. She looked down, a smile forming small, broken, but finally honest. It was the first real smile she had allowed herself all day. And in that quiet moment, something between them shifted, subtle but undeniable. The room felt different now. Not like an office at the top of a skyscraper, not like a space where power and pressure lived. It felt warmer, quieter, like the world had paused long enough for two people, two very different people, to finally see each other without pretense. She wiped gently beneath her eyes, embarrassed but no longer running from herself. He could tell her heart was still racing, but not with fear this time. With something else, something hesitant and hopeful. He turned back to the computer to finish the repair, giving her a moment to breathe. She watched him in silence, studying the calm way his hands moved. The careful precision, the softness he carried even in a place filled with sharp edges. Her chest tightened in a strange, unfamiliar way. She had met hundreds of men investors, clients, executives, but none who made her feel safe. Not like this. I'm removing the corrupted files, he said quietly. Nothing opens on its own now, and the photo won't appear unless you purposely search for it. She exhaled, relief softening her shoulders. Thank you, truly. He clicked through the last settings, then pushed the chair back. Everything's fixed. He stood and waited, not wanting to just walk out and pretend this moment hadn't mattered. She hesitated, her fingers brushing the edge of the desk. Before you leave. She took a slow breath, as if gathering courage she wasn't used to showing. Can I ask you something? One more thing? Of course, he said. Her voice was softer now, fragile but brave. When you looked at that picture, did you really think I was beautiful? Or were you just being kind? He stepped closer, giving her the same careful space he had all along. I wasn't being kind, he said gently. I was being honest. You were beautiful then. You're beautiful now. But what makes you truly stand out is the strength behind the beauty, the part you try to hide. She closed her eyes for a moment, absorbing the words like warmth she never allowed herself to feel. When she opened them, emotion shimmered quietly at the edges. No one ever talks to me like that, she whispered. They see my position, my decisions, my reputation. Not me. I see you, he said, and he meant it. The words landed in her heart like a truth she'd been starving for without realizing it. She stepped toward him not with confidence, but with vulnerability. Would you maybe stay for a few minutes? She asked softly. Just to talk. Not as my employee? As someone who made me feel understood today? He smiled, gentle and warm. I'd like that. She motioned toward the small seating area by the window. They walked there together, and for once, she didn't carry herself like a CEO. She walked like a woman opening a door she never thought she'd dare touch. They sat across from each other, the city glowing behind them like a quiet witness. She asked about his son, and he told her stories that made her laugh for the first time. All day. She told him about the pressure she lived under, and he listened with the same patience he used on fragile computer parts. The conversation flowed easily, naturally, as if they had known each other far longer than an hour. When he finally stood to leave, she rose too, suddenly wishing the moment didn't have to end. Can I see you again? She asked, surprising herself with her own boldness. Not for work. Just because I want to. He nodded, touched by the softness in her voice. I want to too. Their eyes met, gentle, tentative, full of possibility. And in that quiet office high above the city, two people who never expected anything from each other found the beginning of something neither of them had been brave enough to hope for. The CEO who learned to hide her heart. The single dad who learned to carry his alone. One glitch, one photo, one vulnerable question, and everything changed. Later that evening, after finishing his last job of the day, he picked up his son from after-school care. The boy ran into his arms with the kind of joy that always melted the heaviness from his shoulders. They walked home together, hand in hand, the boy excitedly telling him about a drawing he made, a new friend he met, and the snack he traded for something way better. He listened with a smile, but his mind still drifted back to the moment. In the CEO's office, the trembling of her voice, the way she asked if she was pretty, the way her eyes softened when he told her the truth. At home, he cooked dinner while his son hummed a tune at the table, tapping pencils together like drumsticks. There was comfort in the routine, a warmth in the small apartment that no corner office could ever give. But tonight, something felt different. His phone buzzed on the counter, and when he checked the screen, his heart paused for a beat. Her message. No, it's late, but thank you again. Today was harder than I expected, and your kindness, it stayed with me. He stared at the message for a moment, surprised she had reached out at all. She didn't seem like the type who let people close, let alone long after business hours. He typed back carefully, not wanting to overstep. I'm glad you're okay. You deserve peace, not pressure. Seconds later, the typing dots appeared. Is it strange that I feel lighter? Like I finally breathed for the first time in years? He leaned against the counter, smiling softly. Not strange. Just human. A long pause and then another message. Would it be too forward if I said, I don't want today to be the last time we talk? His chest warmed at the honesty in her words. Before he could reply, his son tugged at his sleeve, showing him a stick figure version of them holding hands. He kissed the boy's forehead and typed his response with a quieter, steadier heart. I don't want it to be the last time either. The typing dots returned. Good. The simplicity of the word carried something he hadn't expected: hope. The kind of hope that made him imagine a future where pain didn't live in her eyes, where she didn't have to stand alone in her glass castle pretending nothing hurt. A future where she might laugh more, where she might trust again, where she might even learn what it feels like to be cared for instead of admired from a distance. Later that night, after putting his son to bed, he stepped onto the small balcony of his apartment.